Welcome to the Power of Greats. I'm your host, Matt Crane, and every single week we come to you right here on iTunes, SoundCloud, Stitcher Radio, iHeartRadio, and Pandora with one mission in mind, and that's to help you recognize that your current situation is not your defining moment. You know, every week we have entrepreneurs, CEOs, bloggers, writers, famous people, celebrities, but more importantly, we have people that at some point in their life made the determination that where they currently were was not going to define who they were for the rest of their life. And this week, we got my man, Brock Goss. You know, Brock Goss is a highly thought of real estate agent, commercial real estate broker. He's an ex-Marine, highly decorated Marine, might I add, college athlete, but more importantly, he's also one of the most well-rounded salespeople on the planet. And I have the pleasure of having him in the Power of Great studios today. So, Brock Goss, welcome to the Power of Great, my man.
Matt Crane, it is a joy to be here, man. I'm glad to be here. That's something that you'll hear me say quite a bit. It's all about your attitude. And if you can't look at yourself in the mirror every day and give yourself some reasons why you're glad to be here, then you got a problem. And when I woke up today, I knew that this was going to be one of the reasons I was glad to be here today. And I'm glad to be on the show.
Absolutely. Well, I tell you, I'm really excited to have you. You know, Brock, we came across one another. We'll jump right into it. We came across one another during one of our guys, Grant Cardone, someone we both follow, both have a high respect for and appreciate. He was doing a water pitch, and you submitted a video, I submitted a video, and through osmosis, we just met one another. We began interacting with one another, and then, you know, we carried that offline. So what was it like pitching the godfather of sales? But more importantly, what was it like when he sent you a direct response saying it was one of the best pitches he'd ever heard?
Man, you know, well, honestly, let me tell you what I think about Grant Cardone, first of all. A lot of people like Grant Cardone because there's a lot of energy generated around his show, and he's put a lot of money that he's earned back into becoming a kind of a self-made celebrity. He's not really only a self-made millionaire and successful guy. He's a self-made celebrity. He's a regular person that's made himself into a celebrity. But the drawing for Grant Cardone for me is that I was turned on to him by a friend of mine and my brother who actually asked me to read one of his books, and I read the 10X Rule. And after I read that, I realized that there were some things in my life that I was capable of that I wasn't exploring those things. I didn't think that it was possible for me, and I didn't think that having that level of activity was something that I needed to do. I thought that I had already kind of exhausted some of those things in my life, and I'm on the other side of that. I've left the military, and I kind of just got to coast. But at his age and the thing that he's doing in his life and what he's been able to accomplish, he's still grinding. And it gave me the mentality that, you know, when I wake up in the morning, I think to myself, when am I going to make it? You know what I'm saying? And when I made that pitch, that's the place that I was making that pitch from, is that I want to do something. I was so inspired by what he was asking people to do with the Whatever It Takes show. He was asking people to come and interview for a job with him, right? And it reminded me a lot of what we asked recruits to do when they come to join the Marine Corps. I was a Marine drill instructor, and I know you probably didn't say that in the intro, but when you say highly decorated Marine, you know, a lot of Marines just say I did my job. But I was very fortunate to do some things that were extraordinary, right? And one of those things in my mind was the opportunity to be a Marine drill instructor. You got, you know, not very many people become Marines. Not very many people become a military service member, but very few people get the opportunity to become a Marine drill instructor. And I want to take this opportunity right now to thank everybody who ever listens to this or shares it with somebody else. I want to thank the people who have family members that are on active duty or who have served on active duty. I want to thank them for their sacrifice. And I want to give a big, huge shout to the people that have lost a family member or a loved one or a friend due to some kind of conflict or training or whatever. If they lost their life while on active duty, I want to just tell them that, you know, in my heart and mind, because of what I've gone through and my friends that I've had, you know, I want everybody to know that I'll never forget the fallen and their families. But going back to, I thought that was very important for me to say, but going back to what you asked me about, you know, what did it feel like giving that pitch? It felt like it was a moment where I had realized that there was a skill set and an ability within me because of what Grant revealed to me through his book and through this job interview. There was an ability within inside of me that I had not expressed before. And I thought, what a way to express it through this video and through letting everybody know that I've got, not only do I have the ability to sell and have the ability to articulate what it is that I want somebody to know about a glass of water or a product or whatever it is, but what I try to do every day in my job, and what I do as a commercial real estate broker and as a dad and as a husband and just as a human being on planet Earth, is I try to help people know what makes sense about a sale or a situation. And if it doesn't make sense, I don't want to do it. It's like you've seen the things. What's the guy's name who does Wolf of Wall Street? What's the gentleman's name that's playing?
Jordan Belfort.
Jordan. He does the sell the pen. Well, I guess the first question about a pen for me is, are you in the market for a pen? Because if you're not in the market for a pen, then I need to move on and find somebody first who's in the market for a pen. So that's the kind of thing that I look for on a daily basis, and I try to be on my A game all the time. You see, it's really easy to shoot a video like that and do a sales pitch when everything's going really good. But when things aren't going not so good, you got to be able to put your A game, in the faces of the people who see you on a daily basis. So you always, always, always have to be mindful of that. So really, really, to answer your question, what it was for me is it was an opportunity to show that I'm ready to explore all of the talents and abilities that I think that I have and possess that are extraordinary and better than most of the people that are involved in that business. So I just wanted to get out there and put myself out there, and I ended up being in the top 5. When they did the show where they selected the ones that were going to be the best, they selected top 5, and I was in there, and I was very grateful that I was selected to do that.
Yeah, and I will say this. I definitely believe, once I met you, obviously I went back and started to see a lot of the older versions of Brock, and then I firmly agree with you 100%. It was almost like your coming out party. You had already achieved some levels of success, but I think it was that moment where you tapped in to what we're going to roll in now, and it's that 110% mentality. You're a firm believer that if you really want to achieve greatness, if you really want to go the extra mile, it's going to take more than 100%. It's that 110% effort. It's that extra 10% that most people don't give. So, for me, I felt like it was that moment that birthed the 110%. Would you agree with that? And walk our audience and our listeners through, Brock Goss's 110% mentality.
Absolutely. I'm glad you brought that up, actually. So the 110% wasn't and somebody's asked me this before, is your 110 thing just a derivative of Grant Cardone's 10X? And my answer to that is absolutely not. I think that me exploring that area of my life and trying to do new things and trying to show what my talents and abilities are through social media and different platforms and not just holding it in, that was what I really found in 10X. But here's what I mean by 110. I read an article by Tim Ferris. And if for whatever reason, Tim Ferris hears this, and you know what I think? I think this is a good opportunity for us to try to get Tim Ferris involved in this conversation, right? I know you're thinking that. I know you are. But look, here's the deal. Tim Ferris did an article, and I'll post it on my social media page today again, about how to set your goals at 70% and achieve more and win more by rigging the game so that you can have more success. And what I thought to myself is, wow, and he gave some examples of IBM and some other people. And, it seemed like it made okay sense to me. And the guy, he graduated from Princeton. He wrote a book called The 4-Hour Work Week. I'm sure you've heard of it before. And he's a very well-known author and a philanthropist and a social media giant and a community builder kind of thing. He's great. Tim Ferris is great. But what he said to me made me think to myself that, okay, when I was younger, I was 4 years old, I lost my mother. I moved in with my grandparents. I lost my grandfather the very next year. The year after that, I had some things that were preventing me from being able to read, and I had to get some, I had to go through things where they like put a patch on this eye and then they put a patch on this eye and all that. And all that stuff was happening to me while I was in the incubation period of learning to read, right? Around like 5 or 6, 7 years old. So I knew words in sight words, they call them, but I didn't understand and how to comprehend reading. So I didn't really learn to read till I was in the 7th grade. I was 12 years old. And my grandmother, not a lot of people knew this, but my grandmother raised me and she protected me, man. She saved my life. God rest her soul. But she saved my life because she moved me from a school named Minnie Burgard to a school named Jesse Rice. It was just within the same city. Moved me because, we had lived in one place and then moved to another. I went there for a year. They were trying to put me in these special classes because I couldn't read. And I was just trying to give me the opportunity to catch up. I had a really, really late birthday in May, so I could have stayed back a year, and they were asking me to do that. And she was just determined. So here's what she did. She did my homework. She did my projects. She helped me with tests. And when I went through to go take like the test to pass from, 6th to the 7th grade, I didn't pass. So I got moved from a city in Georgia called Macon, Georgia, to a city, Warner Robins, where my aunt lived. And I moved in with my aunt. I mean, she moved me around and would drive back and forth to help me do my homework because I just couldn't do it. One day, something told me that I'm just going to have to put more effort towards this. I was putting effort towards athletics. I was a really good football player. So I decided that I'm going to put the same amount of effort towards learning. And now, after doing that, I had to do it my whole life. At 36, which was last year, I finally earned a master's degree in leadership and project management from Boston University, which was a very proud moment for me. But the whole time, even in college, when I first went to college at the University of Alabama, I always had to put forth more than normal effort. And I don't want to hear anybody talk about there's no such thing as normal because they created this little thing called the bell curve. You know what I'm talking about, right? Where you can figure out the average amount of times that something happens within society, and you'll find that there's a normal there. There's a normal height. There's a normal weight. All you got to do is measure it. So there is a normal amount of effort. And I figured out that, you know what? There's probably some people that think like me. And here's when I decided that 110 is something that people need to know about. I read this article, and I discovered that there's a huge movement out there of people that says that you can't give 110%. And I absolutely 100% disagree. And I can't find a formula. I can't find like a mathematical sequence where you can say if you do these things, then you'll get to 110%. I just know that there's other people like me that have to give more than average effort or more than their full capacity of effort. They have to get more resources. They have to find more tools. They have to get to know different people. They have to learn things. They have to stay up late at night, sleep less. And then the other thing that I wanted to add to that is the fact that when I was at Parris Island and I was a drill instructor, there were things that we saw these young guys and girls. At Parris Island, the males and females live separately but train together. So I mean, there's a myth around that, and I don't want to get into that as a whole nother ball game. But the males and females train together, and they're on track together, and they graduate at the same graduation, but they just don't live together, and they have female drill instructors and male drill instructors. So, but I got to watch the females in their transformation as well, but I'm going to talk mainly about the males. We would do a 3-mile hike, and then after we were done, for the first time, some of them were pretty exhausted, but right after that, we would go PT. Right after we do physical training, right after that. So something where they had never walked 3 miles with a pack before. Then we go run them 3 miles, and we do sit-ups and pull-ups, and then we're not done. We get back up on the table, and we do more PT, and it's like, we would get them to do 10 pull-ups where they do one at a time, and then they would get done, and they think they were done, and we would do 100 more. It's like being able to see somebody realize that their capacity is so much more than what their mind will allow them to put themselves through is where I learned the concept, physically learned it, that there is a 110% level that you can give. It's just the point when you get past where your mind tells you that there's no more to give, and you ignore that, and you physically move yourself past that mark, right? And that is something that every human being is capable of, but you don't believe it until you do it. So when I decided to start letting people know that I was going to, do interviews, and I'm going to start doing more of that in some of these types of podcasts, I want to interview people who because of their situation, they have to devote more effort to become successful than just what is average or what is normal. You know, and the more people that I interview, the more people will understand the same mindset, because I want everybody to know it. And here's the other thing I want to do. I want to offer it for free to everybody, because it's just a thought. You know, I want everybody to know that as soon as you think it and believe it, it's free to you. You know, all you have to do is try to do the same thing that you see somebody else doing, right? It's just like you. You're a good example. You're one of the first ones that I covered. There's a lot of people that believe that your current situation is not your defining moment, right? So that's why I also thought that rigging the game, I know I'm going way off the deep end with this, Matt, but rigging the game so that you win more, I didn't learn from winning. I learned from losing. And you say your current, and that's why I wanted to cover you. You say your current situation is not your defining moment, because, hey, man, look, your current situation might really suck. You know what I'm saying? So if you rig the game to where it continues to suck, all you know how to do is fail. You know what I mean? So really, if you set the bar really high and you aren't able to make it, you get past that normal success area, right? And then you get into this zone where there's nobody else is there. And you realize, you know what? I'm doing something extraordinary and I'm capable of more. Now your limits that you had before are in a new place. So you go further and further and further. And I think that if somebody gave me a chance to rig the game to win more, I wouldn't want to do it. Because when I fail and when I find myself in situations where I can't achieve the goal that I want, I work harder and I try harder and I dig deeper. You've heard all those words before. Go the extra mile, dig deeper. Extraordinary. If that didn't exist, then 110% wouldn't exist. But it does exist, and people like you, Matt, are an example that it does exist.
Yeah, I definitely appreciate that. And for everyone out there listening right now, we're with Brock Goss, and what he's really laying down is he's talking about that 110%. It's that, you know, you go 100%, but that 110% is when you push past when your mind tells you got nothing left. And, you know, that leads me into my next question for you, Brock, and definitely something that I know is important to you and is really kind of spun off from your experiences of being told you couldn't make it because you couldn't read, being told to go to special classes, but having someone believe in you so much to where they were willing to commit and get in the trenches with you no matter what it took, and how it really transformed you to where you are today. But before we do that, I want to give a big shout out to the folks at Rush Impact Media, my man Jeremy Warner and the team out there doing an amazing job to help power up the Power of Great podcast. And without them, a lot of this wouldn't be possible. So a big shout out to the team, Rush Impact Media, my man Jeremy Warner. But you talked about mastering your limits.
Yeah, man.
And I think for someone that's listening right now, because I believe there's a lot of adults that still deal with disabilities, that still deal with dyslexia, that still can't read, that still have speech impediments, that still have these insecurities that are just something that's going to be with them, but yet no one has really gotten the trenches with them. And for you, 110%, Marine Corps, University of Alabama, Roll Tide, by the way. And now what that really showed me was that you're all about mastering your limits.
Right.
So because of that, you're starting a program, Master Your Limits. Talk to us about that program and just what that's all about and why. How did this come about?
Okay, so the idea that you're limited in this life is it's hard for me to believe, right? Because let me just break it down like this, and then I'll kind of go through why I think that way, right? So there's a lot of research about how human beings got to Earth and how Earth became to be what it is. And you don't have to be religious. You don't have to believe in God. And I'm not even going to talk about what I believe when it comes to that, because none of that is important. Because what I discovered through all of that is there's two things that are and I'm writing a book right now, and you know that, Matt, and it's kind of in the incubation process. It's very, very new. And what I want everybody to know is here's the two foundational principles of this idea, Master Your Limits, is that you can argue about evolution or creation and how old the planet is, and if it's 1 billion years or 1 trillion or a quadrillion or whatever, right? All of that it means nothing when you think about these two things. We are here. Number one, we're here. We're here. How we got here, what our purpose is, who cares? We are here. Human beings are here. And the second thing is we are absolutely 100% in charge of this place, right? We have complete and total dominion over the earth, and we've named everything and put it into categories. Everything that is because we have identified that it is. And that's, listen, that even counts the stuff that's undiscovered. Even the materials and resources and ideas that are undiscovered. This little thing that we're talking on right here, 500, 200 years ago, somebody would have passed out if they knew that we could do this, right? And in about an hour, everybody else can listen to it and watch it everywhere in the world. Come on, I mean, look, so everything that is discovered and undiscovered belongs to us, right? So if you really believe that, if you really truly believe that, then you know that you have unlimited potential. All you got to believe is we're here and we're in charge. That's it. So Master Your Limits that's it. It's a program of steps that allow you to ignore labels. People label you, right? So you're a big guy, right? What are you, like 6'4", 6'3", right? You're a pretty big guy. So people might label you slow or clumsy because you're big. But look, that's not you. It doesn't have to be you if you don't believe those labels. So this process allows you to ignore emotion. It allows you to take that emotional factor and say, well, you know what? I'm an introvert and I just can't really do that. And, emotionally, I'm not stable enough to accomplish something great. This process, Master Your Limits, it allows people to ignore that emotion. It allows people to ignore prior failure. It allows people to ignore circumstances that kind of like back them into a corner, right? And put them in a place where they don't have the ability to get certain resources. You know what I'm talking about when I'm talking about money and stuff like that? None of that matters either. It's a process that corporations use for strategy. It's a process that military organizations use for accomplishing a certain mission. It strips away everything that is a label, like somebody saying, hey, look, I'm going to use this word, and it's just for example, and if people get upset, I'm only using it as an example, right? But people use the word retard, okay? Okay, let's think about that word, that label, and how that could limit somebody. Matt, what's the guy's name? And I know you know this, and this is kind of a rhetorical question. What's the guy's name with the really, really high IQ who's in the wheelchair and can't talk?
Stephen Hawking.
Steve, well, you've talked about this guy before, right? So if you just stuck him in, like made him 12 years old and stuck him into a school, the kids are going to call him a retard, right? But somebody who's mentally retarded, their ability is it's retarded. It's not able to expand. You follow what I'm saying? Like the meaning of the word. But once you take away that label, what's the guy's IQ? It's off the charts. He's one of the people, the last people living with like the highest IQ of anybody in the world. And I don't know what the number is, and that's not important. But once you remove that label, he's not restricted by that. You know what I mean? So that guy, if he didn't believe that and other people didn't believe it, he would never become who he really is. So I think that people need to know that, the idea of limitations, just that idea is the thing that limits you. It's just the idea that you're limited. Once you realize that you're here and you're in charge, and there's a program that you can follow from A to B, and it will take you closer. It might not get all the way there, but it will take you closer to those limits and probably a lot further than what you could imagine. The only thing that we're limited by here on earth is our imagination and time.
Well, I think one of the things that we're noticing now more than ever because of social media and video and instantaneous attention is that we're seeing that the human being is more extraordinary than anyone ever thought.
That's right.
And, for you being a Marine, I think about some of our wounded warriors, some of our veterans, those folks that have lost limbs but are coming back and doing CrossFit games, breaking world records, doing triathlons. And I think what you said was so important for so many people is that at some stage in the game, okay, I firmly believe that most people have some sort of mental disorder at some point, because we're all crazy to think that being broke is status quo, that being filthy rich is the end-all be-all, that having the big house is what's going to make us or break us, or living in our car is where we're supposed to be and destined to be. And I think that you have to have some sort of mental breakdown at some point to say, you know what, I'm going to master these limits. You know, and I think back of all the successful people, one of the most important traits for every one of them was that they can pinpoint a definitive moment where they said, this isn't it for me. And I'm going to do extraordinary things to get to where I want to be in life.
And the reason that that is true is, if it's something I forgot to mention, and I feel like maybe we should write this down at this moment in this thing. We got to make sure everybody catches this part, right? The idea in the book, the 10X rule, is that there's no shortage of success. You know what I'm talking about, right? Like, so the idea that once you realize that there are no shortages and that there's no supply and demand, and that the scarcity when it comes to success is not real, then that's when you really open up this idea that limitations exist only in the mind. Roger Bannister broke the 4-minute mark for the mile. The same year that he broke it, 20,000 people broke it the same year. So somebody's going to look up the numbers. It's close to 20,000. The other thing is that people in high school now break that record. Almost every year, a high schooler has ran it in under 4 minutes. But it was something until 1953, I think, that was seen as impossible. How long have we been on the moon? How long have we been in space? We haven't been in space since, the 50s. So we've only been in space since the 50s. But since then, we're able to do things on our own life, like a GPS in our car. That signals from a satellite. People plug it in every single day and get anywhere they want to in the world, and they get that information at the speed of light, faster than what you can even imagine. They get that information right now and are able to get directions to where they want to go right this very second in their vehicle, on their phone, when they're walking, from anybody. They could go call somebody and get the directions that they need. So just the idea of how much we've been able to expand in such a short period of time, I think that where we're going is just unimaginable. Like, we can't even imagine it right now. That's why I said earlier, we got to even believe that the undiscovered resources and the undiscovered talents that we have still belong to us. And you got to believe that if you're ever going to get past something like not being able to read, something past like, your mother and father not raising you, and, your grandfather and your mother passing away. You know what you got to do? You got to believe that you're a curse breaker. You look at kids like me when they grew up, right? When kids like me grew up, you're cursed. It's a curse to have your mother die of cancer when you're 4 years old. It's a curse. You got a 4-year-old, right? Imagine how your 4-year-old will feel if you poof, it vanished right now. But that little guy's got to believe that he can do anything, and in 10 minutes he's got to be able to move on with his life, because he's got a whole life to live. You know what I mean? And I say this a lot now because I believe it. You got to get busy living or get busy dying, because everybody's got an expiration date. 10 out of 10 people die. So you've got an opportunity to do something extraordinary. And I think that opportunity is to just believe that there's no limit to what you can accomplish.
Well, why I connected with the master your limits concept and 110% right out of the gate is, when my grandfather passed away, he's a highly decorated World War II veteran. His eulogy, I can't tell you much about his eulogy other than this one sentence that the preacher said that it floored me, and it impacted me. And I was in my early 20s when this happened. Yeah. And I can remember it like it was yesterday. But he said, Robert Taylor lived through the car being invented, the telephone becoming a weapon, and the internet becoming part of our society. And I think about the limits that were exposed from those transitions.
Yeah.
You know, the car was invented a long time ago. It was just not implemented until later on in life. The telephone was created, but it just really wasn't implemented until later on in life. And then you think about the internet, and I think about what you talk about with the human condition is that we're conditioned to honestly be superheroes, every one of us. I mean, when you think
Absolutely.
about the brain, the heart, the lungs, that's superhero stuff.
Healing. We heal ourselves.
Yeah. And yet we let experiences derail that superhero mentality, or we let moments force us to think that this is all we can achieve, or this is the only place we're going to live, or this is the only place we're going to get to see. And I agree with you wholeheartedly that we have a bigger obligation not to ourselves anymore. For those of us that have children and families, for those of us that don't, eventually you will. And understand everything you do or don't do will directly affect what they will do or not do later on in life. And I promise you, my mission is to leave my children with an abundance of opportunities more than anything. So
the story, real quick, I want to just go this, and I know we're a time schedule here, and I want to make sure we meet it, but I got to say this. So here's why I've done what I've done. My college degree doesn't mean anything, and I'm not bragging. But I've done the things that I've done, like, walk on at the University of Alabama. Now, I left the University of Alabama because I decided that it was time for me to go and join the Marine Corps, and I joined at 19. But I did go and walk on and play football at the University of Alabama with guys like Curtis Alexander, Sean Alexander, Chris Samuels, and I'm Daniel Pope, Mark Malaconi. I mean, I'm going to miss a lot of names. Mike Dubose was the coach there. My brother played there, Chad Goss. Travis Krim, I mean, a bunch of guys, right? I'm blessed to know them, but it was just something I needed to do. I needed to go join the military, and it was the right time for me. And I thank God that I did that, right? But I walked on the University of Alabama. I've continued to go through school my whole life so that I can accomplish these things. So one day I can tell the story that, the young kid who was cursed and, had a patch on his eye and running into the wall, it surpassed all that. And I've gone through some of the most amazing military training in the universe that the world could offer. I've sat in classrooms with people from different countries, in different countries, and I've looked at the faces of people in war. I've looked at the faces of people who are training to go to war. I've looked in the faces of people who are learning the skill like leadership at Boston University, and sat with some of the most astute professors in the world. And the reason that I did all this is so that the kid that hears this story one day, which could be my kids and your kids, is that even if somebody says you're ADHD and you can't sit there and learn, here's how you do the work. People say, well, I'm not good at math. Well, the kid that says, or the young man that says, or the grown man that says, I'm not good at math, my answer to him is, have you figured out what work you need to do to become good at it? Because as long as you can identify the work that needs to be done, you can do it. It might, here we go with the 110. It might take you more than the average amount of work. You might have to give effort. Something Ray Lewis says, and not a lot of people like Ray Lewis, but something he says is something you can't measure in a man or a woman is effort. And as a human being, I can change who I was 5 minutes ago into somebody totally different this 5 minutes that you've never seen. So it's like, if you think that, then somebody labels you as a slow learner or as mentally retarded or as ADHD. Matt, if you remove the label and do the work, none of that stuff matters. Doesn't matter. Hey, man, you're poor. You can't become rich. Tell that to Oprah Winfrey, right? So those people have done it, and that means that it's possible. And as long as you believe that, remove the label and do the work, you can get there. So for the people who say, I'm not good at English, or I'm not good at studying, or I'm not good at doing things with my hands, I can't ever become I can't ever own my own HVAC company. I'm not good doing things with my hands. Okay, that's fine. Have you removed that label? I can't own a business. Check this out. I can't own a business. I don't like talking to people. I'm nervous around people. I'm introverted. Remove the word introvert. Do the work. You can do it. That's the answer. But the thing is, I don't think that people know how to do the work. So the system, Master Your Limits, is really a system that gives people some tools. It's not all the tools, but some tools to where they can do the work. They can remove the labels. They can remove all the emotion, remove the fact that they're, lacking resources, and do work and start moving in that direction. Even if it's just a little bit. Even if it's just a little bit, they can start moving in that direction.
I love that. Remove the label, do the work. Well, ladies and gentlemen, there you have it. My man Brock Goss, as always, came through, delivered the goods, mastered your limits, showed you about the 110%, told you that all you really need to do is remove the label, do the work, and the rest is up to you. Because, hey, there's story after story after story of people who were told they couldn't do something and are now teaching people how they can do anything. So once again, I leave you with this every week on the Power of Great. Success is never measured by what you step out of, rather by what you are committed to step into. And I thank you guys and gals every single week for allowing me to be your guide, your host, right here on the Power of Great. And I hope somebody walked away knowing that right now their current situation is not their defining moment. We'll see you all next week.